Hi and welcome to this video where we are going to be looking at some more advanced uses of if statements and comparison operators. So the purpose of this video is to introduce the logical operators, that's the and, or, and not operator, for you to become confident using nested if-else statements and to provide a little bit more practice and examples of working with comparison operators, div, mod and random numbers. As always guys, the Python monster resources are there for you to use. Should you wish to do so, you have the videos and the booklets. You may find them useful for your revision as well. So by way of a quick recap, you may remember from part 2 of the operators and maths video that we have 6 comparison operators that we use for determining a true or false condition. So those are the 6 here. Okay, which you will have seen from previous videos and also from your learning in the classroom as well. We also have a special type of comparison which is called the in collection. Sometimes it's called the membership operator as well. And here we are asking Python to take a value and to see if it is a member of a set of values, or sometimes we say whether it's in a collection of Python values as well. It can be any data type, and the example here is we're asking whether n, whatever value n is a member of the set comprising 1, 5 and 10. If it's not found, Python returns false, and if it is in that collection or set, then Python returns true. You've also seen guys an example of where we can flip a true evaluation to false and vice versa using the not operator. So there is the not operator on the slide there as well. So simply because we have the ability to be able to use comparison operators, we can then create a sequencing in our code. We call that, as an example, the if statement or if else statement. If a particular condition is true, so if 3 is less than or equal to 4 and it returns true, then we can run or execute one part of the code. If it's false, on the other hand, we execute a different part of the code. So we can sequence our code according to a true or a false condition, and then we can make appropriate selections in the process of doing so. So we have 3 special types of comparison operators. You've seen one of those already. Okay, we've seen the not logical operator in use before. The 2 that we want to focus on in this video are the and the or logical operators. So let's have a look at how this works. So you can see the example on the slide. The variable a has been assigned the value of 10, b has been assigned the value of 20, and c has been assigned the value of 30. That means that a is less than b and b is less than c. So let's see what happens when we compare the left hand side and the right hand side of a logical operator. So can you see why this expression here returns or is evaluated as a false? It's false because only one of these 2 is true. If you look at a greater than b, that's actually false because a is not greater than b, it is less than b. Okay, so the other comparison we're looking at is b less than c. That in fact is true, but both of these need to be evaluated as true for the entire expression to be evaluated as true, and because one of those is false, the entire expression is evaluated as false. So with an and logical operator, both the left hand side and the right hand side of the expression have to be true for the entire expression to be evaluated as true. If we look at the next one, the next example, a less than b, that is true. B less than c, that is also true. So the entire expression is evaluated as true. Now with the or logical operator, only one of those 2 needs to be true. The left hand side or the right hand side needs to be true, but not necessarily both. So let's have a look at this one as an example. A greater than b, well that's not true, that's false. B less than c, that is true. So because one of those 2 is true, the entire expression is returned as true. So in a nutshell, that is the entire logic behind logical operators, and we will see how they work in a little bit more detail when we come to do some Python demos. We're also going to look at nested if-else statements as well, and the reason that I'm introducing these two little topics together is because actually one is quite closely related to the other, and that will make a little bit more sense when we do our Python demos. So let's do some Python now. So the first thing I'm going to do is to show you how we cater for nested if statements in a coded solution. So if you have a look on the screen, I've set myself a little challenge. I've said example of nested if statements. By the way, going forward, guys, I think what I'll do is I'll just refer to if statements to mean all of the possible clauses. Okay, so it could be an if statement on its own. It could be if else, if elif else. All right, so I just call all of those if statements just to make it easier. So my little challenge is customer groupings based on account length in years for a loyalty scheme. So I'm grouping loyal customers into different groups or categories, right? So a customer that has been a loyal customer for 5 years is categorized as an E customer, 6 years as a D, right? And then we're dealing with ranges of years of loyalty. So a customer that's been with the business for 7 to 10 years included is in category C. A customer who has been in the business or with the business for 11 to 20 years included is a category B customer. And then a incredibly loyal customer who's been with the business from 21 to 30 years inclusive is categorized as an A customer. Okay, and then it says underneath that years as a customer is generated via randint. So we're going to be revisiting how to generate a random integer. So let's do that now before we go any further. So we want from random, and then we want to import the specific function, okay, which will be randint. Okay, and as I mentioned before, guys, if you're using PyCharm, it comes up as grayed out because we haven't yet made use of the library or the function. That's why it's grayed out at the moment. So it looks a little bit like a comment, but it isn't. Okay, so there are a variety of ways in which we can cater for the complexity of having some specific values here, okay, but also a range of possibilities. So one of the things which I tend to do is I tend to leave the more complex code to later, and I leave a gap in the code and deal with the easier possibilities. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to start off by saying let's get our random number to start with. Okay, so let's say customer years. It's going to be my sensible variable name. So customer years equals, and then we want randint, and then we want from 5 to 30 years inclusive. All right, so customer years, all right, will be randomly generated for us. Next thing we want to do is we want to say if customer years, okay, is greater than 6. Now, if it's greater than 6, it basically means that it's going to have to cater for this bit of code here, directly underneath, whatever that looks like. Okay, that is going to have to cater for the complexity of these possibilities up here, which is a lot harder to code than a customer that's been with the business 5 years or 6 years. Okay, so I'm going to leave that little bit till later. So let's just get rid of that block for the moment. Okay, and I'm going to put a comment in here which says do this later. Okay. Else, what's the else going to be? No, it's going to be elif, because we've got two possibilities. So elif customer years, okay, equals 6, equates to 6, then it's going to be in grouping D. Okay, so we want a sensible variable name. Let's do customer grouping, customer grouping equals, and that's going to be D for 6. Is that right? Yes. There we go. So the other one, okay, what's left over is a customer that's been with the business for 5 years, which is going to be E. Okay, so that's going to be our sort of catch-all. So else, right, if all else fails, then it must be a 5 years customer. Okay, so customer grouping customer grouping equals, and then we want E. Okay, now I'm just going to initialize customer grouping up here because it's PyCharm's not going to pick it up otherwise. So I'm going to put customer grouping because I'm just cheating really. Customer grouping equals, and let's call it a sort of null value for the moment. Okay. So we need to do this block of code. So this is the bit that caters for all of the complex stuff. In fact, oh no, we can't run it because we haven't actually put in any code. So let's do that now. So if customer is greater than 6, we need to cater for these additional ranges. Okay, so we will say if within this block, if customer years, okay, is less than or equal to 10, because that's the next range. Okay, if it's greater than 6, okay, and less than or equal to 10, then it will be in this range here. Okay, from 7 to 10. So it's going to be the C category customer. Okay, so that's what I'm looking to cater for here. So if the customer years is greater than or equal to 10, okay, then customer grouping must be C. So customer grouping equates to C. Okay, elif, we want to cater for these other groupings now. Okay, so elif, and if customer grouping, sorry, customer years, okay, is less than, it's going to be less than or equal to 20, isn't it? Because our next grouping is here. Okay, from 11 to 20 will be B. So it's not in C, it's greater than 6, so it may possibly be 11 to 20. So that's what I'm catering for here. So elif customer years is less than or equal to 20. So you want colon, and then customer grouping will be B. So customer grouping equals or equates to B. Okay, else, because we've got to our last grouping here, which is 21 to 30, customer category A. All right, so that's the last one that we have to cater for in this block. So else, we would say customer grouping equals A. Okay. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a little comment that says end if block. Okay, and I'm just going to space this out a little bit just to make it a little easier for you to see, and then we can just have a look at this. So I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. Let's see if I can make that a little bigger for you. There we go. Let's try. Yeah, that's fine because it's this bit that's important. Yeah, so basically if customer years is greater than 6, then it must be part of our larger range. If it's not greater than 6, then it must either be exactly 6, in which case we assign the customer or that length of time to C. Okay, and if it's not greater than 6 or equal to 6, then by default it must be of 5, okay, which is E. So if we have a look up here, you can see that it's not 6, okay, and it's not greater than 6, then it must be a 5-year customer, which is category E. Okay, so we've dealt with the easiest part of our solution first. This was the harder part. Okay, so if it's greater than 6, it could be a C grouping, in which case we say if customer years is less than or equal to 10, so that means greater than 6, less than or equal to 10, it must be a C group customer. If that's not the case, then if it's less than or equal to 20, okay, then it's a B category customer, and if neither of those two are valid, then it must be an A group customer, okay, which is greater than 20 and equal to or less than 30. So we've catered for all eventualities. All I've done is I've left my more complex block of code to a little bit later on. So what we have here then is a classic example of a nested if structure. So let's just move this, let's just get rid of that because we don't need that anymore, and I'm just going to close the gap a little bit. There we go, just to make it a little neater. Okay, and I think, yeah, let's put that end if block. I'm not sure if I put that further. No, I didn't. Okay. Yeah, so the reason that I was excuse me guys, the reason that I was just messing around with the code there was just to make the point that in a previous video I suggested, although it was just a recommendation, that at the end of an if block of code you might want to put in comments like this which said end if block. Okay, and you can see here I've done it twice. So in the previous video it wasn't particularly obvious why you would want to do that, but hopefully here you can see why it is quite useful to put these comments at the end of when a particular block of if statements actually finishes, because you can see where it finishes, particularly if it's nested. You can see where that one finishes and where your outer block of if statements are continuing. Okay, so with the comment in there that says end if block there, this relates to this block here. Okay, so that comment, it's very easy if you look at that comment to see that you've finished with this internal block, this nested block of code. Okay, and when you get to this point here, okay, this point here, then with the end if block there, it relates to the entire block of code. Okay, so personally I just think it's easy with that comment in place to be able to see and distinguish between your different structures of if statements, if that makes sense. Okay, and I've just realized that I have forgotten, that's wrong there, isn't it? There should be an ing on the end of that. Okay, so now we just need to put something to print on screen to make sure it works. Okay, so we're going to do something formatted. So let's pop in, I'll move this over a bit because it's going to be quite long, I think. So let's put in print and let's do customer years is. And then we want to concatenate, and then we want to cast the number data types to strings, of course. So customer years. Okay, so we want customer years. And then we want plus, the one I always forget to do, and then we want to go back to string. Let's put a full stop at the end of that, followed by grouping. Grouping is, okay, and then we want to concatenate with the string version of customer grouping, which is there. Okay, so we're going to compare with our spec, which was at the top here, to see if this works. Okay, so I'm just going to move this over a little bit. In fact, let's just make this a little smaller so that I can, oops, might have to be even smaller, guys. Hopefully you can still see that. I just want to get our output in the recording screen. There we go. Excuse me. So let's run this and see what we get. So customer, right at the top, customer years is 30, grouping is A. That's correct. Okay, because that's our longest serving customer is in group A, so that's correct. Okay, customer years is 26, grouping is also A. Yep, that's true because it's 21 to 30. Hopefully we'll get lots of examples of the full range here, or perhaps not. Customer years is 25, grouping is A, that's correct. Okay, we've got a grouping B. That's reassuring. So 18, is that correct? Yes, it's group B because group B is 11 to 20 inclusive, so 18 is fine, that's in that group. Customer years is 13, group B. Yep, that's true because it's between 11 and 20 inclusive. 10, group C. Yep, that's true. It's 7 from 7 to 10 inclusive, so that's definitely group C. Okay, group 13B. Okay, there's 13. Hopefully we'll get a 5 or a 6 in a minute, and then we can make sure that these values at the end of our structure work. Okay, so we're back up to group A. Let's keep going, see if we can get 22, 15, 6. There we go, that's a bit more encouraging. So there's 6. Yep, group D. And let's see if we can get a 5. I won't labour this to death, but let's just see if we can get a 5 at some point or other. We'll try it a few more times. 13, 24. Yeah, maybe not, guys. Okay, but it should work. Okay. 18. Yeah, 5. There we go. Just as I was about to stop. Yeah. So customer years is 5. Group is E. There we go. Customer years is 5. Group is E because that was actually our default. Right, okay. If all else fails, it's in group E. So if you look at the spec that we started off with, we said 7 to 10 inclusive was C, 11 to 20 inclusive was B, and 21 to 30 inclusive was A. Be quite nice though, wouldn't it, to be able to say, for example, here, If customer years was greater than equal to 7 and was less than or equal to 10, then it would be a group C customer. If on the other hand customer years was greater than equal to 11 and less than or equal to 20, it would be group B. And of course likewise we could say if customer years was greater than or equal to 21 and less than or equal to 30, then of course it would be group A. And of course you know from the introductory slides where we were talking about logical operators that it's quite possible to be able to do that. And in fact you may have guessed already that with those in place we could do an alternative solution to our code, which is actually going to include less lines of code, because of course the evaluations with the AND operator take place on one line. So let's see how this might actually work if we do our solution using the logical operator AND. So these bits of code at the top we need to keep. Okay, our actual solution we can get rid of for the moment. And in fact what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my default value to E at the beginning, which I could have done in the last solution, but I wanted us to practice having that catch-all, that else at the end. But I'm going to set my default value to E as the initialization of my variable. So I'm going to initialize it as a value E right from the outset. And let's just get rid of that spurious comment on the end there as well. So what might this look like? Well, we want to say if now guys, I always put the values on either side of a logical operator, I always enclose in brackets. Now as far as Python's concerned they're redundant, but I put them in because I feel that they are a lot neater, but you don't have to put these in. Okay, the choice is yours. So I'm going to put in these brackets that say customer. Okay, customer years greater than or equal to 7 and okay, and then customer years, okay, it's less than or equal to 10. So that's our first range covered here. Okay, so that's our first range. So if that is the case, okay, colon, customer grouping must be C. All right, so we assign C to customer grouping if that's the case. And then of course you want elif. All right, and then actually I'm going to copy and paste this because it's just a question of tweaking. So let's pop that in there. So if customer years, in this case it's going to be greater than or equal to 11, okay, less than or equal to 20. There we go. And of course our last one, let's just put in there. I was getting ahead of myself there, guys. We haven't actually assigned customer grouping, so let's assign customer grouping. Just do a quick copy and paste. So customer grouping in this case is of course going to be B. All right, and that just leaves us with the last group. And of course with the last one, if I pop that in there, and I actually explicitly cover the last grouping, okay, so we're going to do copy and paste. Okay, so this one will be greater than or equal to 21, but less than or equal to 30. Right, now because I've explicitly put that in, okay, and that will mean that the only one I've got left to cover is the customer grouping of 6 years, which of course is the D, because I've set my default to E at the top. Okay, so now that I've covered off all of my ranges, okay, the only one that's left now is elif, okay, customer years equals 6, okay, and then customer grouping equals D. Okay, so let's just so I'm consistent and setting a good example based on my own recommendations, I'm going to put in there end, okay, if block. So I've only got one this time, because if you notice I've only got one block of code. In fact, with this solution I have eliminated the need for a nested if set of statements. Okay, now I'm not saying for one moment, guys, that nested if statements are something you will never come across, because they are very much needed, and in future solutions you may well need to do. nested if statement solutions, but it is very often the case if you look for solutions that include logical operators, you will either eliminate a nested if block of code, or you will make your code a lot simpler. You will make a complex if statements a lot simpler if you revisit looking for opportunities to use logical operators. Okay, so that's just a little trick to look out for making a potential solution a little bit easier. Okay, so that just remains for us to run this to make sure that it works okay. Okay, so let's give this a go. Okay, so customer years is 18, group is B. Yep, there we go. So group B, that fits. Okay, customer years is 9, group is C. Okay, that fits. Okay, you can check these out as well whilst I'm highlighting them, guys. Customer years is 14, grouping has been set to B. Okay, 14, that looks good. Let's see if we can get some of these lower values as well. Customer years is 18, that's B, that's good. Okay, 28 is A, yep. Okay, we spend a lot of time with A and B, don't we? A, okay, group A, gosh. A, B, let's see if we can get down to the C's. Oh, there we go. Customer years is 9, group is C. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Okay, because 9 there is greater than 7, less than or equal to 10. And we might be lucky. Who knows? We might be lucky and actually get an E or a D in a second. Oh, there's a D. Customer years is 6. There we go. And I'll just do it a couple more times, see if we can get down to an E, because we were very lucky in the earlier part of this demo. So let's see if we can get down to an E. Okay, a couple more times then, and I think we'll call it a day, because it sort of looks like it's working okay. Okay, so in this last example, we're going to ask Python to give us another random integer from the range 3 to 100 inclusive. This time we're going to see if whatever the number Python gives us is divisible, exactly divisible by 3, or exactly divisible by 7. And we're going to use modulus to do that. So I've started this off already. From random import randit, num equals randit from 3 to 100 inclusive. So what we're going to do, and I will explain this as we go along, if, okay, num mod 3 equates to 0, or num mod 7 equates to 0. Okay, then we're going to print some stuff. So I'll just put in there, print some stuff. Right, I'm just going to zoom in, guys, so you can see this. I mentioned, I think earlier on in the video, that I personally always put brackets around the left and right hand evaluations, and I just wanted to see what you think here. If you look at all of this together, for me that looks a little bit jumbled up, and certainly it will be the case if you've got 3, 4, 5 maybe joint evaluations to do. So I always put these redundant brackets around, so num3 equals that, and then or. Okay, and then I put a set of brackets around the right hand side as well. And for me that just looks neater, and it's just, I think, easier to look at, but again the choice is yours. So what stuff are we going to print then? So if it's divisible, the number is exactly divisible by one or the other, well, let's start off by printing out the actual number, because otherwise we won't know what Python has given us. So let's print num is, in quotes, num is space, and then we want to concatenate with the string version of num. Okay, that'll do nicely. Then we want to see which of those two, either the 3 or the 7, exactly goes into the number that Python's given us. So we can do that quickly by just using standard division. So we can say divided by 3 is space concatenate, and then we want the string version of the number divided by 3. So str num standard division by 3. Okay, and let's do the same for the 7. So I'm just going to copy and paste that and then tweak it. Okay, so divided by 7 will be, okay, and the reason that Python spread those out is because Python actually prefers this, which I have to say is probably a little bit better. So I'm going to leave it like that, okay? Because Python, I don't know if you've noticed, but when I pasted it, Python tried to do its spacing for me. Okay, else means that the number that's been randomly generated is neither exactly divisible by 3 nor exactly divisible by 7. So let's say that. Else, let's do print, and we want str of none, okay, concatenated with is neither divisible by 3 nor by 7. There we go. Let's just move that over so you can see it. Okay, so let's run it and see what we get. I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller and just move that over so you've got the whole of the output in the record screen. Okay, so let's run.
Power off.
And it says num is 9. Okay, so divided by 3 is 3, which you know, guys, 3 3s are 9, but 7 does not go into 9 exactly. 9 is not divisible by 7 exactly. It's 1.2857. Okay, so you're getting the gist. Let's just make that a little larger. Okay, next one, 80, neither divisible by 3 nor by 7, which is quite true. All right, then we have 73, neither divisible by 7 nor by 3. Okay, num is 39. All right, 3 times 13 is 39, but 7 doesn't go into 39 exactly. So you're getting the gist. 5 is neither divisible by 3 nor by 7, absolutely. Okay, and then we have 77, yep. 7 into 77, 11 exactly, but not 3. Okay, now all of this makes perfect sense. So you can see how it works. It's one or the other, and you can see here examples, lots of examples we've done where it's one or it's been the other. Okay, now I'm going to do something which I know straight away you're going to think is a little bit strange. All right, but bear with me because it will all make sense in a minute. So we're going to do from 2 to 100 exactly divisible by 2 or by 4. So we want for each number that's generated, we want Python to tell us if it's exactly divisible by 2 or by 4. I know what you're thinking. Hold your horses. All right, let me just change this to reflect what I'm going to actually do, or I've said I will do in the comments. So num mod 2 equals 0, or num mod 4 equals 0. Then here I want 2, okay, and then I want divided by 2, traditional division, what you might call float division, okay, and that should be 2, shouldn't it? Num, okay, divided by 4, okay, and then we want standard division by 4, and then here we say is neither divisible by 2 nor by 4. Okay, let's run this, let's see what we get. Okay. 38 divisible by 2, okay, but not exactly by 4. Okay, let's do another one. 25 neither divisible by 2 nor by 4, absolutely. Let's do another one. 39 not by 2, not by 4, okay. 91 is neither divisible by 2 nor by 4. Okay, and then we've got 42. Okay, divisible by 2 but not by 4 because it gives us 10.5. Okay, 25 neither by one nor the other, and this is an example of what I was hoping at some point or other. I'm sort of slightly relieved. Okay, so let's have a look at this for a second. Okay, so clearly Python has evaluated this expression as true, because otherwise it wouldn't have run and executed these lines of code here, so that we know this expression, the or, okay, has given us back or evaluated the whole expression as true. But hang on a second, because isn't there something wrong with this? Because this is supposed to be the or operator, in other words, one or the other. In fact, what's actually happened with this example, where 72 is divisible by 4 and by 2, is that the or operator is actually behaving like an and operator. So if I put in and here, okay, and Python had given us 72, I would have got exactly the same. In other words, This is a situation where the OR operator is returning true and the AND operator is also returning true. I'm just going to put in a little comment, okay, before I forget to do so. I'm going to put in here, this is the Python inclusive OR. Okay, and what the inclusive OR means is that it's not just one side or the other. It's not just this side or that side, okay, one or the other. It also includes both of them being true. So Python will return true if one or the other or both the left and the right are true. So in other words, the Python OR also includes an evaluation of AND. Now in the majority of cases we don't care too much. Okay, in most programs you won't be concerned about whether both conditions on the left and the right are true, just as long as one of them is. But there are occasions in programming where we want one or the other but not both. Okay, we exclusively want one or the other but not both. Now the Python OR in this particular case, let me just change that back to OR before I forget. Okay, the basic Python OR logical operator doesn't exclude the AND, it includes the AND. It's one or the other or both can be true for the whole expression to be evaluated as true. And I just wanted to show you that that is the case, and just for you to remember that and to be aware of it if your code ever needs to, or ever doesn't look like it's running correctly. It may be because it's evaluating both as an AND operator and as an OR operator, if that makes sense. In a future video we will be looking at bitwise operators, and then we will look at what's called the exclusive OR, where we can actually distinguish between one or the other and both. But that's for a future video. Okay guys, that's it for this video and for these demos. I hope you found it useful. I will see you in the next video.